2025 could be one of those years with extreme volatility to the downside, and that would interrupt gold and silver's bull market, at least potentially. I think that the fundamentals as they are, other than long-term interest rates, are all bullish for gold and silver. But those long-term interest rates out there are worrying me. So, the investment thesis that flows from that is to not get too excited either way. Continue to dollar cost average in high quality miners or physical precious metals or whatever you've been doing. You'll be in great shape because long-term fundamentals for precious metals are super. Fundamentally, gold and silver should be way higher than they are right now. So yeah, I anticipate them going up, maybe irregularly, but steadily over a long period. I think gold goes to 10,000, silver goes to a couple of $100 an ounce.
Expectations are high at the ongoing BRICS Summit 2024, as China's President Xi Jinping made a historic announcement regarding the bloc's new payment system, BRICS Pay. This system is seen as a critical step toward greater economic autonomy for the alliance, which continues to seek a multipolar world and lessen reliance on the US dollar. While BRICS has not yet introduced a gold-backed currency, which would be a game-changer for the global monetary system, introducing this payment system represents significant progress. Last year, the BRICS group expanded for the first time since 2001, welcoming 4 new nations. This year's summit is expected to see another significant announcement, potentially related to the BRICS Pay system. However, uncertainty remains about whether this will lead to an immediate rally in gold prices as the financial world watches cautiously for further developments. Analysts like JohnRubino point out that despite central banks in BRICS nations aggressively buying gold, no decisive move has been made to impact the global monetary system significantly. If introduced, a gold-backed currency from BRICS would mark a seismic shift, but uncertainty is tempering market reactions for now. In parallel, the global economic landscape is being shaped by central bank actions. Central banks, including the U.S. Federal Reserve, engage in aggressive easing cycles, typically supporting gold as a safe haven asset. A recent 50 basis point interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve has the potential to trigger a flight to safety, pushing both gold and silver prices higher. On Monday, 4 Federal Reserve policymakers expressed support for further rate cuts, though their views on the pace of reductions varied. While 3 officials advocated for a cautious, gradual approach, citing economic strength and uncertainty, San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly indicated that current Fed policy is very tight and suggested that continued rate cuts are necessary, especially as inflation trends downward. Make sure to tune in for our expert analysis. Don't miss out on future content. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay in the loop. Your support is greatly appreciated.
A lot of stuff going on in the world that would normally point to precious metals going up. But it's been such a long time since precious metals have really rocked that it still feels like a surprise, like, why is this happening? But, if you look around the world, we're on the verge of World War III in 3 different theaters. The BRICS countries are meeting this week. Actually, they might be meeting as we're speaking right now. And they've hinted at a lot of things that might be important from a global monetary perspective. They kind of fooled us last year, so I wouldn't get too excited about what's happening there. But it's definitely a real thing. And with the amount of gold that BRICS countries' central banks have bought in the last year, it's not inconceivable that they do some kind of gold-backed currency related thing. So that would be a very big deal. The central banks of the world are starting to ease again. We're in an easing cycle with the U.S. central bank just doing a 50 basis point cut, which was, it was on the high side of expectations. So everybody assumes we're in an aggressive easing cycle right now. And, all of those things point to higher precious metals. It's the kind of environment where money flows into safe havens and investment or inflation hedges, things like that. So I guess with all that stuff going on, we shouldn't be that surprised. But it's a pleasant surprise. It's really nice to see gold moving into totally uncharted territory, and silver starting to pick up and outperform gold in a percentage basis. So I think the question now is, well, I put it this way: the stackers of the world and the gold bugs of the world are now getting into the range of that problem everybody wants to have, is that when do we take profits on the thing that we bought that's going up? And that's an interesting discussion right now. I'm going to post something on it on Substack But I can, spoiler alert, I'm not going to say anything definite because there are a lot of reasons to hold, and there are always good reasons to take some money off the table when something you bought has gone up. So we'll have to see. Fundamentally, gold and silver should be way higher than they are right now. So yeah, I anticipate them going up, maybe irregularly, but steadily over a long period. I think gold goes to 10,000, silver goes to a couple of $100 an ounce eventually. But what worries me right now is that, we talked about how the central banks of the world are starting to ease and everything, but normally that brings with it lower interest rates. And the US 10-year Treasury rate has been going up for the past couple of weeks, and it's back up above 4% now. It was in the high mid 3% range for a while there, and now it's back up in the fours. And that short circuits monetary easing if the bond market doesn't participate and goes in the other direction, because that makes mortgages more expensive and car loans more expensive and basically any other kind of debt more expensive right now. So if that happens, in other words, if the bond market rebels against this round of easing, then we're in a whole different category of interesting, because that's not normally how it works. Normally, the Fed, if they want to, can force long-term interest rates down by buying long-term bonds. They haven't started doing that yet, and that might be the big test here. If interest rates go up and the Fed steps in with a new round of QE, and then the bond market still doesn't participate and go down, then all bets are off. But anyhow, that's the kind of disruption that might interfere with precious metals continuing to go up because long-term interest rates, other things being equal, are deflationary, and they're not good for the inflation hedge thesis. So, and they're not good for economic growth. That could bring about a recession and an equities bear market. So 2025 could be one of those years with extreme volatility to the downside. And that would interrupt gold and silver's bull market, at least potentially. So that's what worries me right now. I think that the fundamentals as they are, other than long-term interest rates, are all bullish for gold and silver. But those long-term interest rates out there are worrying me. So
The movement toward de-dollarization has gained momentum, extending beyond the BRICS nations to include other emerging economies. This broader initiative will be a crucial focus of discussions during the BRICS 2024 Summit, with an outreach session planned for the final day, October 24, 2024. Central topics will include new trade policies, the use of local currencies in international transactions, and the collective effort to move away from dependence on the US dollar. For the first time since its expansion last year, the 9-member BRICS alliance will convene to discuss these issues, marking a significant moment in the global economic landscape. The new development bank, or the BRICS Bank, will be among the key players at the table. The NDB is expected to support de-dollarization efforts by providing loans to developing nations for infrastructure projects. These loans, which will amount to millions or even billions, will be dispersed in local currencies, further sidelining the US dollar in global transactions. The 2024 summit represents a significant turning point in the global de-dollarization agenda as more countries shift away from the dollar-dominated financial system. Rubino, a prominent economic analyst, notes that nations representing half of the world's population and a significant share of global natural resources are steadily moving toward trading in their currencies. Many are also accumulating gold reserves and forging bilateral trade agreements that bypass the dollar entirely.
three or four points here with the BRICS. They have more urgency now to evade dollar hegemony than they did a year ago, because in the intervening year, um, the um, the assets of Russia that we froze have now been confiscated and spent on the Ukraine proxy war. And a lot of other threats are out there being made. The Ukraine war in general has heated up. We're sending them weapons that can strike deep into Russia right now, and there are rumors that we've got boots on the ground over there. And then North Korea is sending their own soldiers to fight on Russia's side. And so the world is heating up in a very intense way. And the fact that the US tends to use the dollar as a weapon in its many conflicts in the world means that it's more likely to weaponize the dollar against Russia, China, India, whoever else wants to stand up to them in the BRICS coalition. And that gives the BRICS countries an incentive to hurry up and get this thing done, to just start trading with each other with their own currencies, not holding dollars as reserve assets, and just basically bypass the whole dollar-centric world because that protects them from the U.S. using the dollar as a weapon. So, they've got an incentive with this meeting to announce some pretty serious things. But last year they fooled us. See, this is the problem because they had some obscure Russian operative announce that they were going to come out with a gold-backed currency. And then everybody got all excited. It's all we talked about for the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the BRICS meeting. And then they didn't do anything like that. Although they did, kind of in a piece of misdirection, they did announce that Saudi Arabia was joining the BRICS coalition, which was a pretty big deal. Not as big deal as a competing gold-backed currency, to evade the dollar with, but still, the BRICS are doing real stuff. And they do have incentive to do something big this time. So it wouldn't be a surprise if they did something that got categorized as an October surprise in a lot of headlines. But we'll have to see. I mean, there are a lot of technical reasons why they're not ready yet. What they're trying to do is not simple. And they are not as financially, technically sophisticated as the West. So there's no guarantee that they could run their own gold-backed trading currency in a way that worked for them. So we don't know. But I think the long-term trends are pretty much in place. A lot of the rest of the world wants to stop using dollars as reserve assets and in trade. And they're finding ways to do that. They're cutting bilateral trade deals with their trading partners and just trading in their own currencies. And this isn't an ideal situation because a lot of those currencies aren't the kind of thing that you want to stockpile if you're a trading partner, but it's still something that they've been doing. They're accumulating gold, they're cutting more bilateral trade deals. I think the trend is pretty clear that half the world's population and a big chunk of the world's natural resources and military might are all heading in that direction. They're heading away from dollars and towards some kind of a parallel separate monetary system. But the trend is in that direction is pretty much baked into the cake. That it's going to be over the coming decade a lot of news on the BRICS front, unless the U.S. does something really aggressive and to short circuit the BRICS. And I wouldn't put it past us, but I don't know what they're planning. But I think that'll be a tempestuous process because the U.S. considers the the dropping of the dollar in favor of other currencies as kind of sort of an act of war.
The ongoing BRICS Summit underscores the bloc's growing push for economic independence and a shift from U.S. dollar reliance. The introduction of BRICS Pay and discussions on de-dollarization mark significant steps in reshaping the global financial landscape. The monetary system may face fundamental changes as more countries explore alternatives to dollar-based transactions and strengthen their gold reserves. Will these developments accelerate the global move toward de-dollarization, or will challenges slow down the progress? Share your perspective in the comment section. If the video resonates with you, join our community by subscribing to our channel and enabling notifications with the bell icon. Thank you for being a part of our community.